Okay. I think we might be live.
Like the sound of
Maybe.
that.
It says live in the corner. For those watching, this is my first time on EV Muck, so we're gonna see how this goes. Um, but as people show up, and I think I'll be able to see comments on here. I think I have it set up the correct way. We'll say hi. But for now, hello to Nikhil from Shelf Esteem. I'm very excited to talk to you tonight, my friend. I think we were just talking a little bit right before this, how we have very similar taste. I love your channel. I think you have a really unique perspective on some things with your background in like the entertainment industry and all that stuff. And you're just a good dude. So I'm excited to chat.
Oh, thanks so much, man. Honestly, feeling is so mutual. I really appreciate you having me on because, as I was saying, like right before we started this, you're one of my favorite, new booktubers, and I love watching your takes on books because, our tastes are so aligned. I'm loving Malazan. I'm definitely much behind you, but I'm looking forward to catching up.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're reading Wars of Light and Shadow kind of around the similar pace. I think I'm
yeah.
reading a book every other month now. So
Cool.
it's just fun, man, to see your takes on things, and I love watching your discussions like with other booktubers. And so this is an honor, man. So thanks for having me.
Man, the honor's all mine to have you. Okay, I'm starting to see comments now.
Cool. Oh,
How
hey,
does this
Slay
work?
and Philip Chase and Four Corners of a Page.
Slay's here. Man, we got the all-star team.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a delay on EV Mux I'm noticing. That's interesting.
Oh,
Both legends. You're a legend as well, my friend.
hell yeah.
We got another legend right here. Maybe that's a good place to start. Where are you at? Because I just mentioned before we started, I'm
Yeah,
a
yeah.
few weeks behind on people's videos. So like, where are you at right now in Wars of Light and Shadow?
So I'm on Ships of Merrier right now, and this version, the hardcover one that includes both. Hey, there you go.
My
Great
man.
minds read alike, right?
Uh-huh. Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, and I'm loving it so far. I think I like it even more than Curse of the Mistwraith, which I really enjoyed. So it's I'm Mad Prophet doing Mad Prophet things, and I'm
Uh-huh.
here for
Uh-huh.
it. So great.
Yeah, Dakar has been very fun.
Yeah.
But there's more layers in this book
Oh
now,
yeah.
which has been great.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel
But
that too. How about you? Whereabouts are you right now?
so I am reading the whole thing straight through.
Yeah.
So I'm getting close. I'm like,
Cool.
what page am I on? 635. About to start chapter 18.
Awesome.
And it's what, 800 something pages long? Eight or
Sounds
900 for the whole thing.
yeah.
So past two-thirds.
Great.
And I will tell you what, man, I am immensely glad that I am reading the entire thing straight through.
Totally.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I think you absolutely can stop at the end of ships and just leave it there. I think it's fine,
Mm.
but I can already tell there's just so much. It's just such a better experience doing the whole thing through. Would you agree so far?
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. I remember Jenny Wirtz was graciously agreed to be on my channel for
Yeah,
the Curse of the Mystery
yeah.
discussion, and
It was
she
a
had
great
mentioned
video.
like, oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching it. Yeah, I remember her mentioning that it's good to kind of get the continuity of both aspects of the story because it was meant to
Yeah.
be published together, and I really see why that's the case right now because I'm a little over the halfway point now, and so I'm kind of in the beginnings of a war host of Vastmark, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm definitely glad I'm reading it straight through. Definitely the right decision there.
It's exciting. The only downside is now I have to wait a little bit longer for the rest of the read along to get back on pace because I'll
Oh
be
yeah,
a
sure.
book ahead, sort of, right? But
Right,
what are you gonna
right.
do? That's okay.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other stuff to read in the meantime, I suppose. But
Totally, yeah. That's one thing I love about BookTube, and also, I always feel like, oh man, I was just starting to get my TBR under control, and it's like famous last words.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, me. I've been talking with a couple other guys about maybe starting another little read along for a series, and I
Oh,
won't I
cool.
won't throw it out there yet because I want to make sure that we're all like locked into it. But I don't want to put anybody on the spot. But it's
Yeah,
another one that I would be very excited for. And it's just like, okay, well, there's another commitment, and they're awesome, right? Like
yeah.
these discussions with other people, like it's so fun to read a book, right? But it's
Hmm.
even more fun to read it and then talk to your friends about it. And that's
Yeah,
like such a cool thing about BookTube is we can do that, and I love it. It's the best part, but
yeah.
it locks down your TBR a little bit, you know.
Does
Uh,
does yeah. I'm finding that out firsthand this year because I done this poll like a few months ago, a couple months before the 2024 ended, and I
Mhm.
asked, what would you like to do as a read along for the channel? And people picked Malazan, but
Yeah.
like a lot of the other ones kind of came like close second, third, and fourth place. And so I was like, oh, what could go wrong? I'll do 4 read-alongs on the channel. It'll be fun, you know. And it just so
Go
happens to be
wrong.
like two dead series, Wars of Light and Shadow, and hey, I said,
Yeah. Samwise is here.
um,
Hollywood legend, indeed. I do wanna talk about this stuff a little bit as we get in there, but let's keep talking about the books for a second.
yeah, 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 totally. I what was I saying about
Starting a bunch of read-alongs all at the same
Oh,
time,
right, right,
these
right.
dense
Yeah.
series.
So yeah, we're reading Wars of Light and Shadow on the channel, Malazan. We're doing Matthew Corbett, which is fantastic historical
Mm,
fiction series actually by Robert McCammon, who's
cool. Yeah.
like everything I've read of his, I've loved. So I don't know if you've read any Robert McCammon
No,
or
I have not. It's on my radar, that series is.
yeah, yeah.
I can't remember who did I hear talk about it? Maybe Mike? Mike's Book Reviews, maybe one of his videos or something?
I think
But,
so. Yeah, I think he read
yeah.
like the first two, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
definitely like between when I first discovered booktube, and I would love to know kind of your booktube origin story, I guess you could say. But
Sure.
I know for myself, like when I first discovered booktube and I was watching like Daniel Green and then Mike's book
Mhm.
reviews, and I would say Mike is like solely responsible for like 70% of my TBR
Wow.
over the
Yeah,
last
that's
few
cool.
years.
I mean, it's relatable, yeah.
Yeah.
It's relatable. That, I did wanna ask you about that though too, because I saw you recently passed the year anniversary, right? Of having
Yeah, yeah, actually just today. So
Oh, it's today.
yeah.
This is a celebration stream. This is
I
the
guess
one-year
so.
anniversary
Yeah.
celebration stream. That's awesome. So, I mean, I'm happy to talk about mine too, but let's maybe
Yeah.
dig into that a little bit. So, like, were you just a viewer, and then you're like, let me toss my hat in the ring and talk to some of these people, or like, what was the decision that finally got you to work up the courage to finally do it? I think that's a common thing, right? A lot of people
Yeah,
want to do it,
yeah.
but we're nervous or whatever. So, what was that up? What was up with that with you?
100%. Actually, my booktube story and then even my composing story are kind of intertwined in a lot of ways. So, like when I first discovered booktube was in 2019. That was right around the
Okay.
time I discovered the Wheel of Time series. And the only
Yeah.
reason I discovered that series was I wanted to pitch for bigger projects that I had no credits and no business pitching on, just as an exercise to try to see like how can I get better as a composer? How can I get better at pitching? And I saw IMDb, which is like an industry website that tracks projects in development. It had said that Amazon was developing the Wheel of Time series. So I said, "Oh, I'll make some music for that." But I guess I got to read the books first. So I was like, "What is this Wheel of Time thing?" And so I started reading the first book, and then I loved it. And I read the second, and I loved it. And I was like, "Oh, I should get more context to this. I wonder if people do book reviews."
Mm,
So I typed in Wheel of Time book review or something, and I found Daniel Green, and then Mike was going through it at the time.
yeah.
And so those two channels like immediately made me go, okay, I'm gonna dive in head first. And then I found out about all these other fantasy series that I had no idea about. Like the only thing I read up to that point really was Stephen King, almost
Oh,
exclusively.
wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
so and then I ended up doing this kind of like a live orchestra pitch for the Wheel of Time series, and then Lauren Balfe hired me to be a additional composer for seasons 2, and then 3 was the kind of culmination of it. But during that time I was watching booktube videos, but I was just so busy with the music work. I was like working 90 to 100 hours a week for those few years.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was just like, I just don't have time, and I would love to do it, but I knew it was a commitment. I saw how much effort like everybody puts into their channels and creating this community. So I'm like, I'll do it as soon as I can.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
last year was a lighter year work wise because of the strikes and this and that. And so I was like, if I'm gonna do it, it's gonna be now because it's hopefully knock on wood, it doesn't get lighter than this. So
Yeah, for sure.
so I was like, okay, this is about the time to try. And I had no expectations, man. Like I remember doing my first video and I was like, I want to kind of just get better at doing these videos. So I'll just try to improve a little bit with each one. And it's just been far more of a gratifying experience than I could have imagined. It's like I've made friends on here that I feel like, we're all scattered across the globe, right? But it's like if I was to be in a city, I would like totally hit up someone that I know in that
Yeah.
city and see if we could meet up. It's like it's
Yeah.
actual friendships. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you? Uh, and your music is very good, by the way. Everything that I've heard of it is awesome.
Oh,
Um,
thanks, man. I
I
really appreciate that.
Yeah, of cour yeah, I mean, I haven't watched all the Wheel of Time shows, so I haven't,
Oh,
heard
yeah.
much that's in there yet, but I do wanna catch up. It's just hard to find time for, watching a bunch of TV right now, but,
Totally. Yeah, yeah.
um, do
I know.
you well, really quick, I just wanna acknowledge this. Please
Yeah.
read Wars of Light and Shadow, please.
Yep, yep,
He's right, it's awesome.
yep.
Um,
Totally.
so do you so you do the music and everything, right? Do you have experience, like, being on camera and stuff a lot too? Because you seem very, very comfortable on camera, which
Oh,
is a big
that's
hurdle
kind
for
of
a
you
lot
to
of
say.
people. Yeah. Did you just jump in and was this your first time or did you do stuff before?
Well, I tried to do a little bit here and there for my music stuff. So when I had an album come out or if it was a score, I would try to do some video content associated with that. But honestly, like I would look at all these people much younger than me and they are so good at it. And I was
Mm,
so I was so bad at it and also not feeling confident about it at all. So that was one of the other impetuses of starting this YouTube channel, this booktube channel was like if I do a ton of these videos, I'll just get better at doing it anyways.
yeah.
And it might help my music channel because I'll think about it because I don't know if this makes sense, but it's like when it's related to something you do as a profession, there's more pressure or like one
Yes.
puts more pressure around it.
100%.
Right? And it's like with BookTube, it didn't feel as much of a pressured situation because I knew how nice the community was from watching these BookTube videos for so many years, and so I just was excited to almost have that be a way to practice and get better. So I think I did like 100. I think in the last year I've done like 160 videos or something on the
That's awesome.
channel, and that has helped a lot. I think, but
Yeah.
it's that quantity equals quality sometimes, maybe or something.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, it's just the practice. You just gotta get reps in, right?
Totally.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I relate to that quite a bit.
Right.
My job is like in the fitness industry and like the way a lot of it works now, so much of it is driven by social media,
Sure.
and which has pros and cons. But
Mhm.
as social media has evolved, so much of it is video based now, and that's how I got some practice was just trying to talk to a phone, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but those first handful of times you do it, it's just like this is brutal. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
so bad. But you do, as you said, right? Every time you do it, you get a little bit better, and and it's just easier with this because you're absolutely right. There's less stakes. You don't have to worry about like coming off super professional or with a certain brand or whatever. Like you can just fully be yourself and have fun, and
Mm,
you don't have to like. I mean, you certainly can. Some people have the high production and the script and all of that, and those are awesome channels. But you can
mm.
also have a channel which is like what I've done, and feels more like your vibe as well. It's just more relaxed and just like let me just talk, right?
Yeah,
More
yeah.
conversational. It's yeah, it's nice.
I was and I don't know if you feel this way too. I know for myself is like I remember seeing those early videos of Mike and
Hmm.
feeling that like he would always mention it's like sitting around with your friends with a coffee and talking books. And I just love that format. It just spoke to me. And also
Yes,
it's sometimes easier to do that then at least for me like I find scripting everything completely and like really putting together a video is just so intimidating for me. So turning the camera on and just kind of having at it
yeah.
felt like a better entry point for me personally, so
Yes, same.
yeah.
Same. For me, it's sort of both. It's like that vibe just suits my personality type better, but it's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
like I'm busy. Like I don't have the time to do all that. Like I need something that's just takes frankly less time to do and less effort.
Totally. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it just happens to work out that also just feels a little bit better,
Mm,
for the way that my brain works. But
yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, I
100.
I actually had a very similar thing. I was reading The Wheel of Time, and I wanted to see what people thought about it. So I searched it on Google, and here comes like OG Daniel Green, right?
Right, yep.
Where production value was very low, and all this it
Yeah.
filmed his bookshelf with like the whistly music or whatever,
Yep, yep, I
and
remember.
and they were great, right? And then I found Mike, and then it kind of expanded um, out from there. So that's funny. Very similar origin story.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Was that
cool.
around probably similar time, or was it in recent?
Probably, to be honest. When did I finish? Okay, hold on. I finished the wheel. I'm trying to remember because it
Yeah.
was in the. I think it was the second year of my undergrad, which would have been 2018, 2019. Yeah, somewhere right in there.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
okay, we
That's
found out
wild. That's
we're the
amazing.
same person. We found that out tonight. That's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
all right. We gotta talk about Hoyd for a second, I guess.
Oh, right. Yeah. Of course. Had to represent. You know.
There we go. There we go. How would you explain who Hoyd is? It's a weird one.
He's such an enigma. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like somebody who I'm trying to figure out in a way that would be spoiler free too.
Right.
That's
Um,
the It's already hard enough, and then when it's spoiler free, it's like, what can you say
it's even
without it?
harder.
Yeah.
Um,
But he's I don't know. He's an enigma. He might know more than he lets on.
mhm.
Um, very witty, I guess you could say.
You could say so. I think he's some of the only humor in Sanderson's books that lands consistently for me.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
So,
Sanderson. I love reading his books, but I definitely don't read it for the humor personally. You know.
nah,
Yeah.
nah. He'll have something every now and then that I'm like, oh, that was good, but a lot
Yeah.
of it's just like, ah, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Did you? I forget. You read Wind and Truth, right?
I did.
Right.
I did. I liked it. I liked it more than most people, I think. Like I
Mm,
have some, I understand the criticisms. I really do.
sure.
But I still liked it quite a bit. But
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, I remember feeling the humor aspect of it was like a little bit more like the things that I felt a little bit less inclined to enjoy of the humor of his books were a bit more like highlighted. I think in that, and even
Yeah.
in the some of the Wax and Wayne books, I think too.
Yes.
But, yeah,
Yeah. I will say, and this isn't a spoiler, like it was so out of context, but like I thought the slut joke was funny. A lot of people didn't.
hmm
I thought
hmm
it was funny.
yeah,
That's
yeah, 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 yeah.
Slay's getting an early look at our boy Chance Dillon's book. Man, I'm so excited to read that. That'll be
Oh,
that's exciting. That'll be cool.
that's that's coming out in May, I think, right?
Arcs maybe. I think it's July 20, I want to
Or is it
say.
July? Okay, okay.
Um yeah, I believe is when like the actual like full public release. Have you seen any of the art that he's posted for it?
I
That he
saw the
got
cover art.
commissioned?
Oh man, it looked
Dude.
amazing.
Yeah, he's gotten some really cool commissions for it.
Yeah,
I'm very
yeah.
excited for that.
Yeah,
Is
I'm so
that
excited for like it's gonna be May, June, July. You know, it's like
yeah.
May's Discovery, June is
Mhm.
While Darkness Gathers, and
Yeah.
then July will be Chance's book. So I'm here for it. Next 3 months are gonna be awesome.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Yeah, While Darkness Gathers is very exciting. I like when I read I'm not gonna lie. When I I jumped into the first Edan book, right? And I was like, I expect this to be good.
Yeah,
But like, I had no idea. By the time I finished the trilogy, I was like, this is in my top 10 of all time. It has to be.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was blown away. I can't wait for that sequel.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That's definitely a day one reader kind of a thing, you know. I felt the
Yeah.
same way. I was like, I was excited to read it. Everything I'd heard about it, people had raved about it. But it's like one of those things where when you hear about something versus when you directly experience it, it's completely
Yeah.
different. And I just remember being blown away by the prose in that first book, and then even more so in subsequent books.
Hmm.
Man, it's just beautiful, yet it's direct, and it's like that whole transcendental fantasy that that Philip talks about. Like
Yeah.
I want more of that. I
I
love
do
that kind of.
too. I do
Yeah.
too. Um, as soon as Philip gets off the call, we can say what we actually thought about the book. We're just being nice because he's here. Um, No, but I don't know if you've had this or not, but like to me, the more I read, the more I like because I had a similar experience when I started watching BookTube initially. I was like, "Whoa, I didn't know there was so many books."
Yeah.
like there's just so um, the more I read, the more I'm like, I still love the very basic. Like I still love Sanderson's books, right? I still love the more basic, super straightforward, just fun, whatever. But like more and more, I seek out the like really let me really get in there kind of books,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like Philip's books, like Jani's books, like Malazan, like those sorts of things. So I don't know. Have you had an experience like that, or are you like
It's
how do you
actually
go?
very similar. Yeah.
Mm,
Like
mm,
when I first started reading more in adulthood, it's like when I discovered the Dark Tower series by Stephen King kind of
hmm.
like propelled me back in. And
Yeah.
then Wheel of Time, of course, like kind of kickstarted everything, and I found out about Dresden Files, Joe Abercrombie, like all these different series.
Yeah.
And so I started kind of picking those off one by one.
Nice.
And I also felt the same way as like when I first discovered Sanderson, that was the kind of fiction I wanted, like all the time.
Hmm.
And then, I tried the first two Malazan books back in 2021, and I liked
Hmm.
them, but I don't think my brain was quite ready for it yet, if
Yeah.
that
Just
makes
wasn't the
sense,
right time. Yeah.
It just went, yeah. And revisiting it now, I'm like, this is like all I want in my life is this kind of writing.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like Jani, Philip, and Steven Erickson,
Yeah.
and I think it's because I don't know if this is true for you. I would love to know your thoughts on this. Is like, it's like it's interesting how as we grow older, our understanding of nuance also evolves because we have different
Mm,
experiences, and that kind of changes our perceptions on life. And so it's like some of the things you can appreciate the depth of it a little bit more.
yeah.
As you go.
Yeah. I could not agree more. I feel like I've been talking to several people about this recently about how
Mhm.
like the time in your life when you read something matters so much. Like you can like it still, but like if you hit something at the perfect time, I feel like that's like me with Sun Eater over the last year or two, right? Is it's just the perfect time in my life for that story to hit me to where
Yes.
it's I've just latched onto it so hard. Um, and a lot of people say that about Malazan or about whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's huge. The more um, those subtleties are sort of lost on us when we're 18 and don't realize how stupid we are, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
it's funny.
What's that
Um,
saying? It's like you don't know what you don't know yet.
exactly.
That's what it is.
Exactly. That's how it goes, man.
Yeah.
But that's kind of cool. And it's also like I think about, like Song of Ice and Fire is that was like the first adult fantasy that I read. That was
Oh,
probably
really?
like
Yeah.
yeah, that man, when was that was probably 2013 or something. And so I'm like, I can't wait to reread that at some point because I'm
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
completely different person now.
Right.
I'm so excited to see how that feels, or like reading Malazan again. It was only been a couple of years since I finished it, but like
Sure.
a lot can happen in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it,
When you were
Dune's
reading
another one, yeah.
uh, when you were reading A Song of Ice and Fire, were you watching the show as well at the time, or were you
Yeah,
reading first? Or yeah.
sort of both. So the I started watching the show first. I'm trying to remember the
Mhm.
exact. I think it was by the time season was it when season 3 ended, maybe, is when
Mm,
I went and grabbed the books
cool.
and, started reading and eventually got ahead of the show. So I oh, wait, is that right? I know the exact, um I know the event that happened, I just don't wanna say it because it's a gigantic
Oh,
spoiler.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
There was I could tell you after the call or something,
yeah, yeah. No
but
problem.
yeah, I was show first, fell in love with it, grabbed the books, even better,
Mhm.
sprinted through them, got ahead of it, and then, um, made up my own fake canon ending in my head.
Right, right. As
All
we all do, right?
of that. And I think mine
Hopefully
is
one
pretty
day.
good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's all right. But yeah,
I kind
that
of
was
wonder. I would love to know your thoughts on this. Is like I kind of wonder if the show ending, and I'm not going to mention obviously any details about that, but like if the show ending was maybe in broad strokes what George R. R. Martin had
mm,
planned, and because it did so poorly, maybe not because of what happened, but how rushed it was or whatever,
yeah.
he's kind of now in a corner where he's like, now what do I do? I have to kind
I
of throw out
mean,
ideas, or I
it
don't know.
could it could be. Like I would hazard to guess at least parts of it were because like the
Mm.
series called A Song of Ice and Fire, guys. Like you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
there's certain things there that make a lot of sense to be very central to how the story ends.
Right.
But some others, like I have some ideas for like um, some of the other big POV characters that I wasn't super satisfied with how the show ended it. That I have
Totally.
some thoughts that I was just like, oh, that feels nice to me anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could absolutely be right. Sometimes I wonder that, and I wonder like, is he just making so much money from the shows, and it's just it feels like less pressure, and he just doesn't want to deal. He's just like he's having fun and just doing his thing, like
Yeah.
respect, I guess, right? Like
Yeah.
he doesn't have to finish the books. It's
Right.
his thing. But, of course, I would love it if he did, but
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it is what it is.
I remember. I don't know if you've ever seen this interview. It was like kind of on like on stage at it might have been a panel or something,
Uh-huh.
but it was George R. R. Martin and Stephen King. And George
Uh,
R. R. Martin asked him a question. He's like, "I have one question. How do you write so fast?" It was just great. Everyone was like laughing in the audience.
I didn't can we find this online somewhere?
I'm sure, yeah. It was a pretty famous clip. I don't remember when it was though, but
Okay,
I'm sure you could find it very fast. Yeah.
okay, yeah, we'll see if we can find that. We also need to try to find this, apparently, if the original outline showing the show's ending or showing the series ending,
Oh,
that could be
what?
interesting.
Even that would be great to see.
Yeah, that'd
If
be
we don't
cool.
get anything else, like even that would be
Sure.
wonderful. Answer,
Sure,
put some questions to rest.
exactly. Okay, I wanna make sure I ask you this. So, ho how did you get into doing what you do with music and like you kind of briefly talked about how you got into like doing it for TV and stuff, but like walk me that's just such a different path from what a lot of people wind up taking, right? I think it's so cool. There was a time when I was a kid that I was like, I want to be in a band, I want to do the music thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
I just never did. But
Yeah.
I think it's really cool and interesting. So I'd love to hear about your journey.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, so thanks for asking. I really appreciate it. I mean, I like for me, music has always been a huge part of my life. Like I still remember, I have fond memories of when I was like 3 years old, and I learned to work my dad's like cassette player, and
Okay. Yeah.
he had like Vangelis's Chariots of Fire soundtrack, and I would just play it over and over again,
Yeah.
and I was like obsessed with it, and I would see things in colors, so I was like, oh, that's the blue song, or that's the
Oh,
orange
cool.
song, and stuff like that. I forget what the term is for that. Kines something, kinesthesia. I don't know.
Um,
Oh,
I don't know.
synesthesia. Synesthesia, I think.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Hey, Samo Cute.
All right.
What's up, man?
Here, who is
um,
here? Cool.
and yeah, and then when I was gonna go to college, I was telling my parents about my interest in music, and I'd taken like classical piano growing up and stuff, and they were basically they said like, hey, that's great, you want to pursue that, but get a degree in something else and then do whatever you want. So I got an econ and math degree in college.
Oh, wow,
And
okay.
so yeah, it's like completely different. And then so for when I first moved down to LA to pursue music, the first 2 years I worked at the U.S. Department of Labor as an economist. So it was like couldn't have been
Wow.
further from what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
But I took a fellow colleague's advice to heart there, because I was speaking to her and I said, I don't want to end up doing this forever. And she said, can I give you a word of advice? Having been here for 10 years, and I thought she would say like, oh, stick it out, blah blah blah. And she was like, quit while you still can.
Wow.
And so I was
Okay.
like, okay. So
That's
I ended
telling.
up, yeah. And so I quit, and I was teaching piano lessons, and I played in bands at the time, and I'd started one, and we released a couple albums. We were touring around a little bit. At that time, I did my first kind of feature film, which was like an adventure comedy film. It was like very orchestral, and
Yeah.
I kind of just taught myself a lot of the orchestration stuff. Like I would study scores a lot, kind of almost like you'd read a book,
Sure.
and listen and kind of look rewind and just read the scores, and that really helped a lot with orchestration. And then I around I think of 2017 or so, I decided to kind of leave the band stuff behind and pursue composing as like a full-time thing. And so then I was working on some indie films here and there. I'd meet directors, and we'd work on like whether it be short films or like a feature here and there. And and then that idea of like, hey, I want to read, but I always feel like reading takes away from music time and music takes away from reading time. So what do I
Mhm.
do? Combine them together, of course, right? So
Yeah.
that was the idea of like pitching for projects that are based on book series, because then I can read to do my homework, and I'm probably going to be even more engaged with the books, because I have to be in a way,
Yeah.
and then I can write the kind of music I want to write. And so when I first joined Lauren's team, I was working on, I think within those 2 years, I worked on like maybe 10 or 11 TV series. And I was trying to work on stuff on the side, hence the 100-hour work weeks.
Yeah.
But, but it was like a masterclass in learning how a big team operates too, because,
Mm.
there's so many moving parts to that that are beyond just the notes on the page or the notes in the computer,
Sure.
is like, so for example, when I was working on the Wheel of Time, he would put like, each person would that specialized in a project would be the project lead. So I was like the project lead for Wheel of Time season 2, which was like a full circle moment,
Mhm.
but part of that job was like writing cues. Cues are like pieces of music, for the different scenes, but then also coordinating with production to figure out like which themes should be incorporated where, maybe delegating music out to other composers on the team to like, hey, you take this scene, you take that scene, and kind of just shepherd the season across the finish
Yeah.
line. And so it just taught me how much technical aspect that and things get very pushed till the very end. So we were still getting edits to the picture, like picture wasn't even locked in place. So
Oh,
we'd have
man.
to move our music around frantically,
Whew.
and then do address changes that, whether Lauren had changes or the editor, the music editor, the showrunner, the production, Amazon itself, and so it's a juggling act, and it really taught me a lot about that kind of stuff. So it was a wonderful experience, and I'm so grateful to Lauren for giving me that, you know, how it works in the big leagues, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's been very, generous with like giving proper crediting on things, and so, which is also not something that you see often in their industry. It's like
Mm.
when you see music by, it's like, yeah, but music by and which army, because it does take like a whole, so it takes a whole village to do it.
I can
Uh,
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I have so many questions. Okay, so,
Oh yeah, yeah.
well, really quick before I launch, I wanna say hello to Jared for dropping by. What's up, man?
Yay.
ADHD reader, much deserved recognition. I agree.
Oh, thanks.
Insofar as I'm large enough to do that, but I'm trying my best. Okay, so how does this process work, right? So do you see the scene first and you try to think about like what emotions you're trying to bring about with the music, and then you fit the music to that? Like how does that work?
That's a great question. So it depends on the medium, and it also depends on the scope of the project. So for example,
Okay.
I had worked on a film called Dead Whisper, which is like it was a horror film, but it was an indie production. So oftentimes it'd be me and the director, like we'd be watching the rough cut together, figuring out where music goes, and I would sit at the piano in the corner of his room and try out thematic ideas in real time.
Oh.
So it's very close collaboration. And then of course, then once the themes were established, like, oh, this would be the theme that represents grief, in the film or whatever it is, then it would be figuring out like, okay, how do we weave this in? And I would be looking at picture and figuring out where to weave in themes, or, is this particular scene about the dialogue, or is it about the subtext of the dialogue, stuff
Oh,
like that.
wow.
So it's oftentimes you're not scoring like what's happening on picture, but it's like, what does it mean? So,
Mm.
as Wheel of Time was an example, sometimes there was a particular scene, and not to give spoilers or anything, but this happened in season 2 with Egwene, but the music that was playing was the Forsaken theme, which is,
Mm.
why would it play for that particular character? Well, it was what she was experiencing at that particular moment. So it wasn't
Mm.
necessarily just every time the character, arrives on screen, then that particular theme plays. It might be something related to their inner psyche, or, that kind of thing. So yeah, so it becomes kind of a combination, maybe a high level approach of like the themes, and then it's going into the episodes or into the film and like scoring scene by scene. And with a show like Wheel of Time, you know, there's so many people involved that oftentimes they would have a roadmap. So we'd get very specific info that was usually decided by, you know, Lorne and the showrunner, and then on down to the editor and the music editor. And it would be like, this particular scene, this is kind of the subtext we want to score. Let's bring Egwene's theme in around here. And they would even give specific time codes because
Mm.
at this point she's doing XYZ. So it'd be good to kind of highlight that, but let's not make it too apparent so that it's not like, it doesn't feel like it's being announced, but it's just kind of in the background. You can kind of feel it. And
Yeah.
then so you get, and then sometimes they would have temp music in the cut of it. So what the temp music is like music that has already been written for other stuff, but it's put in there to give you a dynamic arc. Like where do they want music to rise? Where do they want it to fall?
Mm.
Where did how did they want the speed of the music to feel? You know, if it's a very
Yeah.
percussion heavy piece of music that they've put in there as a placeholder, then it might make sense to, even if they ask for like Egwene's theme, to have a more percussion heavy track because that's kind of what they're liking the energy of. And so it's, yeah, it's just like such a technical aspect of the scoring process that goes beyond just the creativity part. So there's like the high level creativity and the vision for the project, and then there's this more like technical aspect of execution of the thing. So it's kind of
Wow.
two pronged, I guess you could say.
Yeah. That's so cool. But it's sort of maybe I don't know if this is a good analogy or not, but it almost kind of feels like somebody who's trying to write a book and like you have the major arc, the major plot points, whatever, but then you have to like write the sentences also. So then
Yeah.
you go in and there's, what word choice you use, what's the cadence you use, what's,
Mhm.
like there's like those different levels to it. At least
Right.
that makes it make sense in my brain.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I think you're right. I think you're right. You know, it's like for me, it's I've never attempted, or probably would never attempt writing a novel. But from even just seeing it from the outside perspective, you know, I'm sure I get the feeling with a lot of creative processes, there's probably like a high level
mhm.
aspect of it, and then there's the, you know, the rabbit hole of this one particular thing. Like, do you
Yeah.
feel that's the case in you know, training for like a workout or something,
Oh, for
or
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's maybe everything's the same, right? I have this
Mm,
theory that there's like these like universal laws that just apply to literally everything.
mm,
Like there's an idea in the exercise science realm called progressive overload, which is basically like your body's capable of a certain thing.
mm,
You push your limits just a little bit, your body adapts. And you can push the limits just a little bit more, your body adapts. You sort of slowly get stronger, for example,
mm.
right? And I think that works with literally everything.
Yeah.
Like I imagine you did that with music. That's why you worked so many hours and things
Right.
like that,
Yeah.
right? I have a follow up question, and ADHD readers actually asking, I think, is the same thing in the sense of like, okay, this is the emotion, this is the thing I'm trying to convey.
Mm.
How do I actually know what button to press to bring out that
That's hard.
emotion?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a hard one. I think themes can be so many different things too, especially as you see now. Like when you think of horror films, new horror films, the theme could be a sound. You know,
Yeah.
when you think of old school scoring, which you're seeing still a lot of that is more melodic, like hummable themes. So at
Mm.
least, and I'm sure every composer has like a different process when it comes to that stuff. For me, when it comes to melodies, I love sitting at the piano, as I forget. I think so. Like, there's, I think it might have been, was it John Williams who had mentioned that, you know, if you can distill a melody down to the rhythm and the actual melody of it, you know, a theme down to a melody and rhythm on one instrument, then when you expand it out, it really works.
Mm.
But you can hum it just playing it on the piano and singing it. Then you kind of know you've hit something. So I'll oftentimes look away from picture, not have it up at all, and just try to get the melodic idea down, and I'll play it like 50 to 100 times in a row,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's like, and I want, you know, I remember a friend of mine who's a screenwriter. He said that he does this often where he'll write a script like a first draft, and then he'll discard it completely and start from scratch and write it again. And oftentimes doing that, the good ideas stay and the kind of less
Mm.
stellar ideas kind of fall away. And I was very influenced by that. It's like the idea of like, you know, if you keep playing it over and over again, the melody starts to coalesce into something more defined. And so when you finally get to the end of that cycle, you have something hopefully that feels like a more distilled down version, or a more focused direction to that thing, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so that's one thing. And then the second thing is like if it's a sound or a, world building device like that, like personally I always, and we did this on Dead Whisper a lot, was like, what's the obvious choice? Let's make a list of the obvious choices. Let's find the non-obvious choice. So for
Mm.
example, there was Whisper, Dead Whisper, even in the title you would think maybe you'd use whispering sounds, or vocals might be a really good obvious choice for that. And we did have some vocals in it, but actually there was this idea of like the siren song of grief calling this guy, and he
Mm.
can't escape it. Um, and so I was scrolling on Instagram as one does, but finally my scrolling had a good reason, because I came across this instrument called a can, which is like a Thai bamboo instrument. It's a wind kind of instrument, and it just reminded me of the wind in the ocean, and it kind of sounded like what I would imagine a siren song to sound like.
Mm.
So I, ordered it from Thailand, didn't know how to play anything, and I learned some rudimentary phrases, and then I used that as a signature sound in the score, and it was cool because it's like people don't know that it's from Thailand, they can't place it, so you go, what is that? It feels out of this world. And then you can use that as a world building device, if that makes
Mm.
sense. So you can have something that people can't associate necessarily to something, but it is a choice that is trying to evoke a particular thing. So at
Yeah.
least that's my approach. I don't know.
That
You
makes
know.
sense. I love that. Yeah, it's like it's so artistic, if that makes sense, right? Like it's not a I think sometimes um I mean, I'm far from an expert. You're the expert, so I'm probably just, but like I feel like sometimes music, especially very popular music, is so formulaic and
Oh,
it's very like just this is the thing that sounds good, right? So they just do that.
mhm.
But that sounds like that's very, very not what
Right.
your process has been, which is awesome. And I think that it just makes more it has like a soul to it, right? It's unique. I think that's so cool.
Well, thanks for saying that, man. I really appreciate it. I mean, for me, like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I think like, I think about reading or watching a movie, like the purpose of it is not to get to the end as fast as possible. It's like everything in between, right?
Hmm.
Is the process is the exciting part.
Yeah.
And so I also feel the same way about composing, is the object of it is not to get to the end of the process and then go on to the next one, and it's about the process itself. So
Yeah.
I always feel like whatever I can do to make that as fun as possible. I To your point though, it is a balancing act, because the bigger the show, the more it's decision by committee, and the
Mm.
easier it is to fall into those trappings of like paint by numbers. Oh, riser here, like,
Yeah.
oh, let's get a swell there, and you're done. So it's very easy for that to happen, and I get why that happens. And sometimes it's even out of the composer's control to some extent because of the decision by committee. But I think it's like whatever we can do to bring it a little bit further,
Yeah.
might as well try, right?
For
So
sure. Yeah. And it's
yeah,
like I would like to think that effort is rewarded at least to a small extent, right? That like it still comes through at least here and there.
I
Um
like to think, even for people who don't necessarily know the ins and outs of music, or just like to listen to it casually, at least for me, I feel like it's like the intentionality of something, people feel it even if they don't know
mm,
the process behind it. It's like when I read a book with intentional prose, I feel it. I don't know what goes into that writing process, and I could never pretend to know, but I know here,
yeah.
and so it's like I think so many creative arts, it's like you're transferring in this intentionality of that creative spark to someone else through that work. At least
I love
that's
that.
how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, man. How do you balance this with like you got to pay your bills too, right? I
Yeah.
think any
Yeah.
artistic thing you sort of have to fight that battle of just having fun with it and just doing, the thing that you love, but also like there has to be at least some of the like, okay, I got to make money also.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
I feel like it's tough at every level. I remember, like, for example, I remember, and I figured I'd mention this because it kind of had a huge effect on me personally, and I think it's like a really good piece of advice that I learned was, I when I was teaching piano lessons like 12 years ago, I was teaching the son of an Emmy-winning composer, and I told him I would love to do what you do one day. I would love to. He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, like composing as a profession and being able to pay my bills composing. How cool would that be? He's like, he said it's interesting. What happens is, that is your kind of stake right now, is right figuring out how to pay the bills each month. And I said, yeah. And he's like, I've gotten to this particular level in my career, thankfully, but now it's also my kids' college education. It's the mortgage
Mm,
payment. So he was saying, the stakes change maybe, but the idea of that navigating uncertainty doesn't. And that really had a huge impact on me. It's like, okay, so maybe I should try to develop a healthier relationship with uncertainty, because maybe that's the key to navigating this. Is it's here, it's actually not out there in the, yes, there is things that one can do to obviously better the chances of paying the bills and this and that. But I think, like, being able to weather the storm here as the storms come. It's like the last couple of years have been so up and down because of the industry.
mhm,
Um, so I think that has been a really good rock for me personally. But then also, there's the idea of there's like a saying in the industry that's like one for you, one for them, and so you kind of do something that is maybe, yeah, you like it. It's like maybe hitting one or two of the boxes of, like, does it pay well, is it a good connection, is it gratifying spiritually or whatever.
mhm.
And if maybe you hit one of those things, you hit the financial aspect of it, that at least helps you. And it's like maybe the other things in your creative portfolio that you're doing at the time can offset that by being really creatively get gratifying. And so I guess I learned that not all of them have to hit all three, but if your general creative day hits all three, then you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's very good advice.
Yeah,
Um,
I just thought that was really cool, and I'm glad I heard it at that time, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely
yeah,
does.
yeah.
Absolutely.
How,
That's so cool, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about you as well, as like, you're doing this PhD now, which is amazing.
Yeah. Thanks.
And
Yeah.
so cool. It's so awesome. And I would love to kind of know more about your journey as well, as like, because I feel uh that there's, what kind of alluding to what we were talking about before, the idea of like creativity or the pursuit of something like, fitness. I think there's a lot of different principles that are intertwined within the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of what I like about it too, right? It just I don't know, there's so many, I don't know, there's so much, like, life in that stuff, I feel like.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it's interesting. I have my personality type is such that, if I really get into something, like, I don't dive in head first right away. I'm not one of those guys.
Yeah.
But I'll, like, dip my toe in. I'm like, "Do I like this?" And if I do, then okay, I'll go knee deep. Do I is this still okay? Yes? Okay, then, and I just kinda take one step at a time, and then if I decide that I really like it, I'm gonna take that thing as far as I possibly like, I try to
Yeah.
max, you know? So I'm selective with what I dip my toe in because I know what my tendencies are, and,
Sure.
one of those was, like, the fitness stuff that, I worked out a little bit in high school here and there playing sports or whatever, but it wasn't anything, like, super, super serious, and it was
Mm,
inconsistent and whatever, and then, I had some personal life, not so great
sure.
stuff happened, like, towards the end of my senior year
Mm,
that, I didn't do any exercise whatsoever for a couple years, and then I eventually started to I found the gym again and, started to fall in love with it again, and I was like, "This is what I wanna do, and I want to how can I do this as a career somehow?" Whatever, and I found out that people do personal trainers exist, right? But I'm like,
mhm.
I'm kinda shy, I'm kinda introverted, I don't know. And I'm not a great like salesman. Like it's just I don't know. I'm much more on the team of like, hey, here's what I do. If you like it, sweet. If not, that's fine. That's fine. Like I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
gonna like
yeah.
really push myself, which I
Right.
understand. I need to get better at. But anyway, I found out people do it online, and I was like, that feels a little bit more my speed. How does
Right.
one do this?
Yeah.
And realized that there are 10 billion of these people doing it online. And how do I stand out? Because like you know, why would anyone trust me? I'm brand new at this thing, right?
Mhm.
And so I found some people who seemed to be really highly respected and who I looked up to and who I was learning from. And by reading their articles or watching their videos or listening to their podcasts or whatever. And a bunch of them had degrees from grad school, a bunch of them had PhDs. And I was like, oh, I'll just do that. That's how I'll get to be an
Wow.
online coach, right? Um, so that's what I did, and that was 10 years ago. And here we are. We're almost done, and it's wild to think about. But
Incredible, man.
that's, I
Talk
mean,
about jumping in with both feet, huh?
I,
Awesome, man.
I
I
guess,
love that.
I guess. But I've had such a great experience, man. It's been like those first few years. So after high school, I tried to go to college right away for engineering. That was like my dad's
Mm.
an engineer,
Okay.
sort of completely self-taught. Like he didn't go to college. He just taught himself and then got really high in this company because he's that good at it. I was like, okay,
Mm,
maybe I should
mm,
do this. Um, so I went for that and I was like, I hate this, man. I think I could do well in it, but I don't like it, which would mean I'm not going to do as well as I could, and I'll just be
yeah.
miserable. So I dropped out and was just working retail for a few years. And in those few years, in the meantime, is when I found all this stuff, and I was like, oh, you can do this online personal training thing. How do I, whatever? And so when I went back to school, it was so daunting to be
Mm,
like, okay, like this is legitimately a 10-year process, at least.
right,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's longer. But I was like, all right, well, when you read a book, it's one page at a time, right? And then you eventually look up and you're this deep into this massive
Right.
thing, and you finish it at some point. So like, okay, we'll just do that, and that's sort of what we did. In those first few years were like they just dragged, dude. It's
Yeah,
because you're in the general education stuff. I'm like, I don't care about American history that much. I want to do this other thing.
sure. Yeah.
It's whatever, but you get through it. But then grad school was, I have had it a blast in grad. Like I would stay in grad school forever if it wasn't so time consuming.
Right, right.
It's so fun. Like I've met some of my absolute best friends. Like I will be friends with these people till the day I die. My mentor is incredible.
Wow.
I played Dungeons and Dragons with another one of my committee members. Like it's so cool. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. I'm so grateful for it. But then it does eat into my reading time. So
Yeah, right. I
um,
know. It's always a
yeah,
constant struggle, you know?
it is. It is. But that is that's the thing that's going to pay the bills,
Yeah,
and I have to accept that I need to put the time there.
totally.
And who knows? Maybe this YouTube thing will pop off, and I'll completely ignore my degrees and do that. And, no, I'm just kidding. I'm
I'm
just
just gonna
kidding.
say, at the rate you're going, it just might, man.
No, I don't. I don't foresee that. I think for me, like this is just too much of a. I just want it to be fun. I don't want that pressure. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. If someone was like, "Here's 500,000 subs," I'll take it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Of
But
course, yeah.
like, it's just I want it to be fun. I don't want to stress out about it and like go to that level to get to that sort of
Yeah.
kind of followings. I don't
I
know.
know what
Or
you
maybe I'm
mean.
coping, but
No, no, no. I know exactly what you mean. I think I remember this might have been a Daniel Green video where a while back where he was talking about that idea that like, when he first started out, he was just doing it for fun and then it became all this and now so much of it is like, oh, the edit has to be tighter here because that will feed into the algorithm and this
mm,
and
yeah,
it's
I
like it
just
it just will become that by the nature of the thing.
yeah,
Um and so I completely feel the same way. So I love the community and I love being able to have direct one-on-one conversations with people. And that's
dude, it's
so
crazy.
cool.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
the I'll tell you what, the social media community, whatever, like fitness industry stuff is a lot different from the
Oh yeah.
booktube.
Yeah.
Like there are some amazing people over there. I like love them to death. They're awesome, good friends. But
Mm.
there's so much negativity and so much competitiveness, but like you can have good competitiveness greatness, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's great. But there's some that's really not good, and
Mm,
there's a lot of just like toxic behavior. Not all of it. Like there's big portions that are great, but just you don't have that over here. So this is really fun for me to hang out in,
totally,
and
totally.
just get to kind of share this part of my life with other people, right? Like there's some crossover. Like I'll talk about books and stuff on, I'll be doing a podcast with somebody for whatever. We were just doing stuff the other day. We had a new. We talked about this a little bit on my video. I had a new paper come out, um, and I was on this podcast talking about it. And sometimes I'll throw in like uh, a random like "Fear is the Mind Killer." Like I'll throw in a random joke
Oh,
for
cool. Yeah,
the
yeah.
people who know. They'll know I'm
Right.
cool. And no, so there's some crossover, but they're pretty separate entities for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, but
That's
yeah,
amazing, man.
it's fun to do this, dude. Thanks. I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
yeah.
it's just I'm just trying to have fun with life, dude. You only get one of them, right? So you got to do
Yeah.
what you like.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same phase of life too, where I'm like trying to also just go, this I feel like very similar sentiments about the entertainment industry at large. Like some of the nicest, warmest, friendliest people I've ever met, but the industry as a whole has its problems. And so I wanted to find a place where I could talk about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and I've also kept them kind of separate for the most part, except for the crossover of the adaptation stuff. But I'm trying to now start mentioning it more, and I just see it's so funny. Like I'll see composers I'll talk to, and I mention the BookTube channel, and their eyes will light up. They're like, "There's communities of people who read books," because like I don't know if it's the same for you, Jake. Like, do you have an immediate circle of people who read a lot, or is it mainly like through BookTube?
Mainly through book. I have a couple friends who read. I wouldn't. They're not like voracious, like plan TBRs and all this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But like I've had a few friends who like I talked to them a lot about Stormlight. Like I've had several people in
Yeah.
my like close friend group that have started Stormlight, and
Oh, that's
um,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I'm like that's jumping into the deep end, dude. Like,
Right.
but yeah. So like some, but it's not like a ton.
Yeah.
Uh, it's very fun to have those conversations in person for sure.
Oh, it's great.
Um, but it's
Really.
rare enough that I'm so glad that this exists.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. Yeah. There's like a couple people I know that like to read, or, they're interested in similar fantasy books and stuff, but they kind of feel like, oh, I'm just the odd person out in my own circle. So when I mention the BookTube channel, they get very excited about that. Like even more than any music talk, that's like the thing that they gravitate to. They're
That's
like, oh
funny.
my God, you know Brandon Sanderson? It's like, there are many of us. There's many.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's cool. That's
yeah.
awesome. I have found I think I've made the most friends in life, or at least positive interactions with people through like the stuff that most people are shy to talk about,
Hmm.
like books like that, or I'm a big anime guy. Like I have Naruto tattooed on my arm. I've had
Oh,
so
that's
many
cool.
people just randomly be like, "Dude," and then they'll show me their thing or whatever, and it's I don't know why that I don't know why like books or certain TV shows or whatever. It's not that they're frowned upon. It's just that like it's not sports. It's not
Hmm.
like these huge big pop culture things
Yeah.
that some people are just kind of hesitant to bring up. And I've just noticed that in my life that I've
Mm.
had so many great interactions, and I'm trying to like put that out more. Right? I'm just
Yeah.
like this isn't weird, guys. Like this is cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
I think the more that happens, and like the more those worlds start to collide a little bit, which I think that will probably start happening more and more as we do
Yeah. Mhm.
this, is the better off like that we will be, and also we will find more people who are actually secretly into that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think about, I remember when I was growing up, like books were kind of like, people are, you'd be made fun of for reading, or like it was that there was a little bit of that bully culture.
Mhm.
Um and um and I think for people who read, or people who watch stuff that is not necessarily mainstream, this and that, like it was easy to be maybe marginalized or feel left out or anything. And it's like now I feel like the internet has evolved to be very niche culture oriented. So it's like you can find millions of people around the world that are into the exact same very niche thing that you're
Yeah.
into. And it that happens to be very uh what's the word for it? I guess it's very narrow, right?
Hmm.
It's not quite the word I was looking for, but it's like very
I see what you
specific.
mean. Yeah,
But because of YouTube and other platforms, even the very specific thing can be millions of people.
yeah. It's
So
amazing. Yeah, the internet's not perfect, right? But
right,
it's got some good sides to it for sure. I'm very grateful that we have it.
totally, totally, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So where do you what what's the like future outlook goals, whatever? Like what do you want to do with all the composing stuff? Do you have like any big pie in the sky dreams? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, like I think if I could make a career doing one thing, if there was a way to specialize in this one thing, it would probably be doing book adaptations. You know, exclusively even if I
That's
could do
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
If I could work on film, TV and games that were inspired by or adapted from books, and just be known for that. That would be the top for me.
Yeah.
And I love writing albums too. Like I love doing standalone music. So I think if I could have my ideal career, it would be, taking a month a year out of the year to write an album and record it, and maybe play some shows around it or something like that,
Yeah.
and then compose the rest of the year. I think that would be like
That's
that
so
would be
cool.
the ultimate best of all worlds. I don't know.
That's
Um,
so cool. Do you have like what are some of the dream adaptations you'd love to do?
Oh man. Well, so there's the one I would say that is the most dream adaptation at this point, which I don't know that I would actually have a shot for because it's Mike Flanagan's The Dark Tower series.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and that like that reading that series, I don't know if you've read it
I
yet.
haven't. I haven't
Yeah.
done any King.
Oh,
It's on
wow.
my list, but
Oh
the list
man.
is long.
I'm so excited for you whenever you start that journey. I'll be living vicariously through you because I wish I
Awesome.
could read it for the first time again.
I'll
But
make sure to talk to you about it, man. That'll be fun.
yeah. Oh, hell yeah, man. Always, always. But yeah, no, I think Mike Flanagan typically uses similar like the Newton brothers, I think, for a bunch of
Okay.
his bigger adaptations. So I assume they're probably doing it. But that is definitely one. Like, if I could ever throw my hat in the ring, that would be amazing. I think if any First Law related stuff happens, that would be so cool. A Dresden Files TV show, that would be
Yeah.
amazing. I know they tried to do one in 2007 or something, which a
Oh,
lot of
that's right.
people
That's
say
right.
is not really representative of the
Mm.
series at large. Yeah, but yeah, there's so many really. I think,
Oh man, yeah.
but
I can only imagine.
oh, if there ever was a Sun Eater adaptation, by the way, oh my god, here's hoping. Here's hoping. I will always hold out on hope on that.
They remind me. Are you caught up on Sun Eater, or
Oh
where are
yeah,
you at? Okay.
oh yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Cool.
caught up. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Are
yeah. You?
you? Yes, I've read everything that this man writes. I will read as fast as I
Yeah.
possibly can. He blows me away, man. I gotta get the. I'm so cheap, but I'm trying to work up the gumption to pay for a couple of his Patreon things to read the other Adaman short stories
Oh
that he's done,
yeah,
like
right.
his fantasy stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that'll be. Oh,
That'll
I
be
can't.
great.
How excited are we for book 7?
Oh man, I cannot. I think I might even just like take off work a couple days or something if I can, and just dive in
Yeah.
fully. I
Yeah.
You remember when he did that Kickstarter for his Diamond Edition?
Uh huh.
I think a couple years back now. I was kept pressing refresh when that was like he was counting down or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like a 2 second lag between when he was counting down and when the time actually hit. So I
Oh,
hit the page like 2 seconds before probably a lot of people did, because it went live like 2 seconds, and so I ended up getting the add-on, which is that he will write me into the last Sun Eater book
that's
as like
amazing.
a character. So I'm very excited to see how I die in that 7th book.
I hope
Hopefully,
it's just
very
brutal and
unceremoniously.
horrible, eaten by a Cielson or something.
Yeah. Oh, that would be an honor.
Oh man, that's I'm so jealous. When he did that Kickstarter, I hadn't started the series yet, and I was like, "This looks really cool," but I just don't. I had never bought any special editions at that point.
Yeah.
I was like, I just can't justify the money. Now in
Mm,
hindsight, I really wish I would have gotten it. But the
uh,
broken binding ones are gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, I love
yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's something special about like the one that the author does fully on their own.
Oh yeah.
That's really it's just it's really nice. It's
Yeah,
really
I
nice.
know. Well,
So
hopefully there'll be way more of the other ones, and then you can get them all, and eventually,
yeah, they're gonna
you
be
know.
harder, like because the priority goes to people who got the first one. I'm sure, right?
Oh.
So um, we'll see. I've heard a couple little whispers of potentially printing more of the first
Oh,
one, and
awesome.
you you bet your ass I won't buy it immediately
Yeah,
if he
yeah.
does, but we'll see. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
I also like, do I need 3 sets of these books is the other thing. Uh, so I don't know, but, I
Oh, I see
definitely
John. John in the comments asked a question
oh, yeah,
about.
let's get to that then. Yeah. Favorite albums of all time. Okay.
Oh man,
Loaded question.
that is a tough one. That's a great question though. So I Beatles are probably my favorite band of all time. So I would definitely rank like Revolver or Sergeant Pepper's if I could only pick one, because I just loved their more experimental stuff and kind of how they changed the landscape of music entirely with that and kind of made albums the thing. They really started the
Mm,
albums trend. Because before that, in the 50s and early 60s through mid 60s, it was very much a singles market, and people were writing for artists, and the artists would sing, and then there would be a cover of that and a cover of a cover, and they'd release them on, see which one hits. And then the Beatles kind of brought the album into the fore. So I guess that would be one of my favorite albums. I am also really into, let's see, I'm really into heavy metal as well. So Iron
okay.
Maiden's maybe Peace of Mind album, love that album. Metallica's Master of Puppets, love it. I'm kind of all over the map, I guess,
That's
in
cool.
terms of my musical taste. Like scores, classic rock, and heavy metal, I guess
That's
might be my
awesome.
three.
You gotta have
Uh,
the variety, man, for sure.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. How about for you? Do you have any favorite albums?
Oh, man, so that's so impossible. I,
Yeah,
um my music taste is also very varied, but it's not a ton of like super super popular stuff. I guess I don't know. Like it feels really popular in my like niche of the music, whatever. But
yeah,
it's not like the Beatles. Um,
right.
I don't know why. I just never really got super into some of those kind of things. But
Mhm.
um, I I don't know. Like a lot of so I'm a big metal guy also, right? But
Oh yeah.
you like actual heavy metal. I like more of the like metalcore, hardcore,
Oh,
those
that's
kind
cool.
of blend stuff. Um like a lot of that world I fell in love with Sleep Token the last couple of years. So their latest album is one of my favorite. They blend metal with pop and
Oh,
synth
really?
and like all kind but it sounds really seamless. It's really interesting. It doesn't sound chaotic and weird. It's like
Yeah.
it feels good. Um,
Cool. Yeah.
so
Sleep Token,
that's
you said?
cool. Yeah, Sleep Token. They just had another new song come out like a week ago
I'll have
that
to check them
I've
out.
they're great, man. They're fun for book fans too because their whole thing is like they all wear masks so no one knows their identities, which people have done that before, right? But
Mhm.
and there's all this lore behind like they came out and basically this singer calls himself Vessel because the idea is that he had this dream of a goddess called Sleep, and now he is like the vessel for this god, and he's the music is all
Wow.
about the experience of that and like what this god wants and him aligning with that, but then sometimes fighting against it, and like there's a storytelling at a very deep level,
Yeah.
and then they do all these cool little, you know, when their last album was coming out, they would put out like some symbols, and fans would start to notice. They see enough of them, they're like, "There's something here," and they found out that you could. It's like a code, and then it leads them to this thing, and then they find that, and it leads to another clue, and then so it's they
God,
really have fun with it. It's cool. It's really cool.
that sounds right
So
up my alley. I have to
yeah,
check this out.
man. Check it out. It's cool.
Thank
It's
you. Thanks for
yeah.
introducing.
What I would recommend if you check it out is
Yeah.
start with their newer stuff and then work backwards because
Oh, okay.
their old stuff is the production value is very low
I see.
and they didn't work out all the kinks yet with how they were trying to blend so much stuff together.
Hmm.
But they have their last record is called Take Me Back to Eden and
Okay.
that's very very good.
Oh, cool. I can't
So
wait to check it out,
yeah,
man.
man, that's awesome. But yeah, that when I'm in my sad boy mood, I like the Smiths or the Cure or
Oh, sure. Yeah.
something like that. Or I don't know. Sometimes I randomly was. If Slay's here, he'll know what's up. There's a new record from a band called Whitechapel that I was into for a little bit when that came out.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I'm all over the place as well, but
That's awesome, man.
there's a
John
related
actually
one.
mentioned Dark Side of the Moon. Oh, some Okie dude as
There you
well.
go.
Can't go wrong with Pink Floyd. I think Dark Side of the Moon
Mm,
and Animals were my two favorite albums of theirs.
yeah, yeah. See, yeah, Slay knows what's up. Spirit Box is another big one. Yeah, Spirit Box has been awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Shadow of My Intent. That's Shadow of Intent. That sounds familiar. Aviations, I
It
don't
does.
know. There's so many bands out there, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There was another one up above that was favorite artists of all time. Do you have a short list?
Probably the Beatles, definitely. Actually, I would say anything Ozzy related. So I loved Black Sabbath. I loved Ozzy's solo albums, like especially the first
Okay.
like four or five. That kind of actually kickstarted my diving into like classic rock, I guess you could say.
Cool.
And I went when I first heard like Crazy Train by Ozzy, and I was like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
after that I was like all in. Let me see. God, I love Cat Stevens. Iron Maiden for sure. Yeah, maybe this it's hard to rank. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's always the
It's
hardest
so
part.
yeah. Oh man, ranking's impossible. It's you gotta just throw them out there. I think that actually
Oh,
unlocked a memory. I remember I used to when I would go to sleep at night. I had like a little. This is in the '90s, folks. So like
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
have a little stereo behind on like my headboard or whatever. That we'd put a. Um, did I ever have a cassette one? I think it was just CDs at the time.
Hmm.
But anyway, I remember like the first CD that my mom bought for me. I must have been I don't know 6 or 7 or something. She bought it was a best of Black Sabbath. That I
Oh,
used
nice.
to go to sleep to that, which is so funny in hindsight.
Wow.
But my mom was cool, man. She got me into a lot of music when
Yeah.
I was a kid, and then like through grade school and stuff. She was like the cool mom who liked Slipknot and stuff,
Oh,
which
what?
is so
That's
funny.
great. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
My it was that was my dad for me actually. My
Oh,
first concert
cool.
ever was with my dad in college. This must have been 2003 or something like that. So um and it was Iron Maiden, Motorhead, and Dio, and
Wow,
it
that's a
just
big show.
blew me away. Yeah, and they were all
Wow.
just phenomenal in that concert. It's like it was
D
hard to tell who was the opening act because they all just
Yeah.
completely
Wow.
yeah.
That's cool. Concerts are so fun, man. I don't go to a ton anymore because it seems, 1, they're so expensive these days,
Oh,
and 2,
yeah.
it's like maybe it's just the South Florida venues, but they're all, like, seating, which is cool, but, like, especially if I'm going to a metal show, like, I wanna be standing in front of the stage, you know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
It just feels different to me.
It
Um,
does. Yeah.
so, sometimes it's tough, like, I also completely unashamedly love Megan Thee Stallion.
Oh, cool.
So we she was coming to like the Hard Rock or whatever close to here, and the cheapest possible ticket. It was like $150 to be in the furthest seat away, and I'm like, this isn't it, dude. I can't do this. But I miss going. In high school, I went to concerts all the time. It was so fun.
Yeah. It's a shame how expensive concerts have gotten too. Like, I remember seeing someone had posted on one of these forums like their old ticket stub from I want to say it was like 1977 or something. It's like when
Okay.
they were, and it was Journey, Heart, Foreigner, REO Speedwagon, like all these bands in their prime, right? It was like a
Wow.
festival, Day at the Green Festival or something.
Yeah.
AC/DC. It was like all these bands at their prime, and the tickets were like for like basically by the stage. I think they were like $12 or something, and it's like, come on! I know inflation and all, but even then, like that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
That was my thought. I wonder if you adjust that for inflation, what it would be, but it's still probably way cheaper than what like even not a legendary show like that would be like these days, man.
100%, yeah, and it's
Wow.
like I would imagine maybe what $100 or something.
Yeah, I mean,
Adjusted. for inflation, something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
that could
go with
be.
that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I don't have the
Carry the
slightest idea, but
two
it
and
sounds
yeah.
good. Yeah. That sounds good to me. Um, do you feel like, do you ever feel like the metal music works its way into what you do, like, with your music? Or does that
Hmm.
feel kinda separate?
That's a good question, actually. I think, like, in some ways, yeah. Maybe the rhythm,
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I know, when I was working on, like, His Dark Materials or something like that, the season 3 I was working on.
Okay.
And, some of the stuff, like, you kind of needed a more percussion heavy, or, like, it was like percussion with some gritty synths and then
Mm,
orchestra on top. And the rhythmic stuff that we'd be doing would be kind of probably one, if you peeled back the layers, like, it would be probably more metal inspired.
that's cool.
Or even, in that Wheel of Time pitch thing that I did, there's like a little quick turnaround where it suddenly goes into triplets.
Mm,
Um, and that's not something you typically would hear in like a symphonic score theme.
yeah.
And so, especially kind of the way it was done, and someone pointed it out to me, and I was like, I just did it because it sounded cool to
Yeah.
my ears. I wasn't really thinking about like the reverse engineering of the process. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of, it's got almost like I would imagine what a drum fill would have sounded like in a metal song.
Yeah. Oh, I love
So
that. That's cool,
I'm
cool.
sure, it's like everything informs everything else, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to some degree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's kinda what I was thinking too. I was like, there's gotta be some, like, even just like an energy, if that makes sense. Like, that sounds so nebulous, but, like, you know what I mean. Like, there's just something that it's not like, maybe from the outside somebody wouldn't pick it out immediately, but, like,
Yeah.
it's there.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah. Does
that's
feel
cool.
that way. Yeah.
That's cool. How I this is probably a stupid question.
No, no.
When you're putting the scores together, how do you, like, is there like a you do it on the computer, I would assume?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there like a button for, like, are you just pushing buttons and, like, this instrument is this button and you're like, how does this work? I'm so
Yeah, yeah,
interested
yeah.
in this.
So basically, I have like a keyboard,
Mhm.
like a piano, like a digital piano, and it has
Oh.
MIDI. Yeah, it has MIDI capability. So what you do is you plug it into the computer, and when you open up your sequencer, which has, various instruments you've collected over time, and they're called sample libraries. So sample libraries are basically like snapshot recordings of a violin player playing the note
Mm.
slow, medium, fast speed, stuff like that. And it's like
Interesting.
hundreds of thousands of samples all coalesced into a piece of software with, really easy to use UI, where you could play it and it will detect what you're playing and make it sound like, a convincing performance, or at
Whoa.
least that's the idea of it. So there's some programming involved afterwards, and that's hence the technical aspect of the scoring. But you're playing with, like, let's say with your right hand you're playing the melody of the violin, right? In With your left hand you're moving the what they call the modulation wheel, back and forth to simulate how the bow would feel like. You're kind of
Whoa.
increasing the dynamics, decreasing, and then maybe there's a button for vibrato. So you're kind of playing it in as a performance, but you're playing it on
Huh.
this piano. And then after that, you'll go, oh, let's add in some horns. And you're doing, basically, you're kind of orchestrating as you go,
Wow.
and recording stuff like that. And this is done from short films to, the Wheel of Time, and
Yeah.
onwards. Like, this is always one aspect of the process, and then sometimes you'll maybe bring in a live player or some live material to kind of, sweeten it. And then
Uh-huh.
once everything gets approved, then you hire the orchestra to do the orchestral recordings, and sometimes you replace, but oftentimes you just layer it on top, because when you hear like a Hans Zimmer score and it's like just sounds like there's 85 cellos playing in the
Yeah.
background. It's like that's because they recorded the cello separately so that they can have full control over it and make it just sound massive. And then they blend
Mm.
it with these sample libraries to really kind of accentuate the frequencies, make it sound fuller. So oftentimes, even the stuff you're playing on that keyboard and programming meticulously ends up being in that final mix. And with the Wheel of Time as case in point, because they didn't want an orchestra for the score, they wanted influences by Cajun music and country bluegrass stuff mixed with some gritty violin stuff, and so oftentimes there'd be a few live instruments, but it wasn't like an orchestra. So even
Mm.
more so, those sampled instruments would come into play, and you'd have a couple soloists over it. So yeah, it's a
Wow,
pretty wild process, I
that's
guess.
wild. That's so cool. It sounds like it's somewhere in between like DJing and like playing the normal instruments. Like sort of you're sort of doing both at the same time. It almost sounds like.
In a way, yeah, yeah, because you're like kind of programming the way it will play, so you can kind of have these convincing sweeping violins, because if you just played it in without doing the mod wheel or the vibrato or things, it would sound very fake. And
Okay.
it's like those things that actually make it feel like it's like swelling and sweeping with the thing. And so that's why, like, some people will try to like, oh, let's cut and paste this melody because to the horns, because the horns are going to double the strings, but then
Mm.
it just sounds like the same performance cut and pasted, to the
Mm.
horns. So what you want to do is you want to play the same thing again, but on the horns, because the timing differences and stuff will make it sound like a richer recording. Because I know this is very kind of geeking out on this stuff,
Yeah, I
and
love it. This
sorry
is
for the
cool.
technical, but when you hear, let's say, 20 violins play something, right? Each violin is not going to be perfectly tuned, right? There's going to be
Hmm.
slight hairline tuning differences, and it's
Yeah.
that intonation difference, and then of course the way they're playing, slight timing differences. That's what makes it sound like a rich ensemble.
Mm.
If it was all perfectly on the grid, it would just sound terrible.
Yeah.
And so there'll be phasing issues and all sorts of sound issues, but it's the richness of it you get actually, and it sounds wider because of those discrepancies. So it's like trying to
Yeah.
recreate the discrepancies in a way.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool, dude. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like how, and I'm always fascinated on hearing people's professions and kind of like the technical aspects of what they do for that thing, because it's like I'm sure, and I can see like with fitness how much of a rabbit hole you could spend all the time probably, thinking about ways to develop a specific muscle group by you know
Oh, for sure.
this
Yeah.
amount or that amount, right? It's
Yeah.
so there's like a technical aspect of it. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever read Total Recall. It was like the Arnold Schwarzenegger autobiography. Have
Mm-mm.
you ever heard of it?
I think I've
So,
heard of it before, but I haven't read it.
oh man, it's fascinating actually, because he basically talks about how he came like as an Austrian immigrant in 1968, and he's like becomes the best bodybuilder, uh, basically of a lot of
Yeah.
people say of all time, and then becomes like an actor with a last name like Schwarzenegger, in Hollywood movies. Can't is like learning the language and trying to take accent removal classes, and then he takes like goes to business school, runs like all these real estate businesses and stuff. Fascinating guy, but he
Oh
talks a
man.
lot
Yeah.
about that, like the idea of like trying to sculpt a body and like what it
Yeah.
takes to do that, where it's like, okay, if I increase this by a quarter inch, then for the symmetry you have to do
Yeah.
XYZ. I don't know, it's just fascinating to me,
It
like
is. It's
different worlds.
that's kind
Yeah.
of lost these days, to be honest. That like really artistic way to look at like bodybuilding,
Mm.
which is sort of partially the fault of the group that I am now in. The Because for so long, like when Arnold and those guys were doing their thing,
Yeah.
they like there was no science. There just wasn't. Um, and then some things started to trickle in, but it was like literally the beginning of research in a field, right?
Mm.
It's just it's wild to think about how new it is. And now like it's still pretty new, and there's still a lot of uh things that we're learning that's like, man, those first couple decades people didn't really know what they were doing, and so
Yeah.
those study results are probably not nearly as reliable as we think they are.
Right.
So now we got to go back and redo a bunch of stuff, and
Exactly.
job security, I guess. But
Yeah, the dance continues. Yep.
yeah, but it's like now the as people have brought the science side into it, and they're like, we can use science as a tool to learn the more optimal way to do things so people don't waste their time or whatever.
Mm.
Cool. It's a noble purpose, but I think as social media has also gotten pulled into this, it's sort of become it's an advertising trick. I'm science based, or like people use they want to mention a research study because it feels like it's a marketing thing, and they think people will trust them more, and then they can sell their product or whatever.
Yeah.
And there, I mean, there's truth to that, right? But it also has become to this point where there's people who sort of bastardize the science, which is not cool. But then people who are, good agents, and they're just saying, here's the science, here's what we can learn from it, whatever.
Mm.
And it sterilizes so much of the artistic side of it. Because then
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, like that's not really a thing. You need to do this thing that the science tells us. And I'm just like, I mean, kind of, but like, there's a lot of wiggle room here.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
it sounds honestly a lot like what you do. Like there's a tried and true method. Like this is a way to get good results, but you have to leave room for the art also. There's like that blend is where the best things come out, right?
Yeah.
It's another. That's the theme of tonight, man. It's these
It seems like
universal
it.
truths. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. I love
It's
that.
it's actually really awesome to see how even in very different disciplines like that, there's just so many parallels. I guess
Yeah,
it's like mindset and approach, you know.
sure.
It's like, yeah, yeah. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, okay, what are you? Let me circle back to books for a second because that's
Oh
sort of
yeah.
why we're here. What do you? Okay, let me get my thoughts together. What do I
Mhm.
want to ask first? You're reading Wars, Light, and Shadow. Are you
Mhm.
reading other things at the moment as well, or do you like to stick with just the one thing at a time?
So until this year, I stuck with one at a time, maybe two at a time. And this
Hmm.
year, I've kind of gone a little all out because
Okay.
of those read-alongs. And so I'm
Uh
kind
huh.
of reading right now. I'm reading Mr. Slaughter, which is book three of Matthew Corbett. I'm
Yeah.
reading Ships of Marrier. I'm reading Memories of Ice. I think that's it for.
Wow.
Oh, and I'm reading. I'm reading this book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Alaska by James Michener. So I just got recently got on a historical fiction kick
Yeah.
because I started to realize it's like fantasy without the magic system, you know,
Mm.
um, in a lot of ways. And some of the historical aspects of, for example, this like the first humans crossing the Bering Strait to Alaska from Siberia reads like a fantasy novel, especially the
Mm.
way these people write these characters, and kind of imagining what they would have been going through in that moment, trying to basically circumvent nature itself, to
Yeah.
find a better life for their family. If it's a storytelling in a different way, and it's like
Yeah.
a kind of a cool way to learn history. And I never really enjoyed history much in classes and stuff, so it's
Hmm.
been kind of fun exploring that.
That's
But
awesome.
so basically, four books at the same time right now.
That's wild. Memories of Ice and Ships of Mary at the same time is a bold move. I
It
respect
is,
it.
yeah, yeah. I definitely didn't think that through very well, but I'm like, I'm on the track now, and I'm like, there's no turning back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
It's
it'll be all
fun,
right.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. How
How about
do you just go like when you sit down to read? Is it just what am I in the mood for right now? Is that how you kind of cycle through them?
that's precisely it. Yeah, for me, I would love to hear your thoughts on that too. It's like I know for me, I struggle with the whole. I always put TBR videos, and now because of these read-alongs, I'm kind of locked into like four of them every month or three of, and then I'm trying to figure out what would be the other thing to fill maybe a slot if there's time. And all this time I've been kind of doing, a fixed thing in that slot, but then when I get to that month, maybe I want to read something different.
Mm,
I've been trying to, within the confines of this box, I guess I put in for myself in 2025. I've been trying to do as many mood based and spontaneous things as I can. So I'll literally have them in a stack, here, and I have
mhm.
this Kindle Scribe that my mother in law got me, and
Nice.
has all my cat scratches on the cover here. And yeah, I'll read some on there or these physical books, and just basically whatever I'm feeling at the time. But
Nice.
yeah,
That's cool. That
how
makes
about for
sense.
you?
I'm similar but a little different. I'm I guess technically I'm reading three different things right now, but they're very like compartmentalized. So
Mm,
like I love to I like to read first thing in the morning when I first get up. Because if I don't, I won't read at all.
Yeah.
Like the day gets away from me, right? Um, so that's my time. So that's why I think of that as like my main read, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, that like right now, Ships and Mary. I usually like to give me like hour, maybe an hour and a half if I have like less going on that day or something.
Mm.
Um, that's my free time, right? That's my like just chill and do what I want. That's not work stuff.
Yeah.
And when I'm Ships and Mirror, sometimes it's more than that because I like to read the full chapter set at a time, right?
Me
And
too. Me
sometimes
too.
that can take longer than an hour, in a good way though.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's and like I'm just doing the one thing that's I'll work on it till I finish the book and then I'll grab something else,
That's
and
cool.
then it's I don't know I feel more I haven't had any issues keeping things straight or whatever. So I'm like, this system works. Let me just roll with this for
Right.
now.
Yeah.
But I also like to read a tiny bit before bed, right? It just kind of helps to get my brain programmed and relax and fall asleep. And I don't sleep in the same room that I read in the morning, and I don't want to carry the book back and forth all the time. And
Hmm.
if it's like a like ships, I can't read a whole chapter before I fall asleep. That's
Hmm.
impossible because I'm going to fall asleep in 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't stop in the middle of a chapter because my brain won't
Right.
let me.
Yeah.
So for that, I like something just super light and easy, short chapters or whatever. So I've been reading the Skyward series from Sanderson,
Oh, right.
um,
Yeah.
that are they're fun. They're not amazing to me. I don't know. They're fine.
Mm.
They're fine. I'm having a good time overall. But
Yeah.
but it fits the bill for what I'm looking for right there. Just easy, light.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't have to, and then now more recently the last I guess I don't know, 6 7 months or so, when I'll bring my Kindle and set it on like the elliptical or whatever if I'm doing a little bit of cardio. And I didn't think I'd be able to do that without getting motion sick, but I can. So
Wow. Oh, that's
that's
great.
yeah, surprised me. So I've been doing an ebook there every now and then. Right now, I'm actually if anybody, you or anyone in the chat or anyone who watches this back saw our like booktube D&D game, the DM that we had for that, Will, sent me his book that he recently finished the second draft of to beta read. So that's what I'm
Oh,
working on right now.
cool.
So that's been fun. I've never beta read before, so I'm nervous,
Yeah.
but I'm just like I don't know what I'm doing, but I've been having fun with that. It's cool.
Oh,
So
that's
that's what I'm
awesome,
doing.
man.
So usually I have
Yeah.
those three things, but they're very sectioned off,
Mm.
which I think helps me to keep to keep everything straight and not
Right.
like
Right.
not feel like I'm just neglecting this one and I don't know, but
100%.
it
Yeah.
works.
I think our systems are probably very similar because I do the
Mm,
hour in the morning and then I'll do, an hour or even maybe even two if I can manage it in the evening without
nice, yeah,
falling asleep. Because sometimes I'm just so drained from the day, it's hard for me to sit and like crack open a book and find the motivation to do it. And so like if I do it in the morning, I know I'm gonna at least do
yeah.
an hour.
It can
Um,
happen. Yeah,
yeah, and for me, it's like whenever I have that free time, it'll just kind of I just keep it as a mood thing because I know for ships and for Memories of Ice especially, I need to be all in those books. With
hmm
Alaska, it does read pretty. It doesn't feel the prose doesn't feel as much where you need to give your full attention to what you're reading, so it kind of
yeah,
reads in a different way. And also that Mr. Slaughter book, they kind of read way that you could read it at night, you could read it when you're tired, and so it's nice to have that variety. So I'm like whatever I'm feeling in that moment, because sometimes I've had it where I'm like the day's done and I actually finally feel like the everything is quiet, my mind is quiet, and I can actually sit with chips at the
yeah,
table and just read it, so it just kind of depends, I guess, on the day.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, I wish I could read for an hour or two before bed. I'll just fall asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not great about sleep. I mean, I've been sleeping like a dork. I'll be nice to myself and say that. I usually get like I don't know 6 hours, maybe six and a half,
Yeah. Yeah.
most nights, and like so usually when I get in bed, you know I might get 5 pages out, but then
Right.
that's
Yeah.
about it. Or there's been a lot. That's why I've been reading Cytonic for 2 months, and I've
Right.
gotten halfway through. It's like I'm averaging like 1 page a day because normally I just don't grab it. But what are
Totally.
you gonna do?
No, I
Such is
feel you,
life.
man. I'm a 6.5 hour kind of guy as well. So I'll
Okay,
like
yeah,
I usually I'll get into bed maybe 10:30 or so, and then
hmm,
I'll read for an hour and
yeah,
then go to sleep. That's kind of like my thing usually.
yeah.
So
That
that's
works,
kind
man.
of yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you survive anyway. Do you feel good for the most part sleeping like that, or do you feel like, man, I wish I could sleep more?
I actually feel like my mind is I just feel like it's just so active by 6.5 hours, like I'm ready to go.
Oh, good
And
for you.
so I don't know, that was never the case like in my 20s or anything like that. I just noticed that that was a switch that happened at a
Hmm.
certain point. But I don't know why, but I'm like grateful for
That's
it.
all. That's awesome. Yeah, I've because I hear horror stories of like I'm 31 now, right? So like, a bunch of my friends
Mhm.
are like they've had kids or they're gonna have kids soon or whatever, and I'm just like, dude, I can't imagine. Like I'm barely sleeping this much. Well, how do people do this?
Yeah.
And so I dream of a day where I can consistently get a good like 8 hours. That would just be awesome.
Yeah.
Be great.
Yeah.
So I
Totally.
definitely feel better when I can do that. But
100%. Might be even able to read more books, who knows, I feel
exactly.
I feel like I don't know if this makes sense, but sometimes I feel like it case in point is like going for a workout or something. It's like a time refunder. Probably that extra hour or so of sleep is like a time refunder, and that you come back from like going to sleep or just going for a workout so refreshed that the rest of your day is more productive, or you're able to focus on what you're reading that much more. And
For
um
sure,
and I
for
always
sure.
have to remind myself of that because I conveniently forget every time. But yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, absolutely. I'm getting a PhD in this and I forget, man, that, the exercise I also like to remind myself, like, doing those things, you're probably gonna live longer and, like, stave off, cognitive decline and all those like, exercise is amazing for that. So it's like, okay, well, I'll live longer, right? So
Yeah.
I can eat the hour now if it means I get 5 more years later or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Totally.
Um,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Same boat.
Well, I my streaming limit is not too far off, and it's
Oh,
getting about dinner time at this point. So I should
no
probably
problem.
hop off before long here. But man, thank you so much for hanging out with me. This has been a blast. I feel like I could talk to you forever
Dude,
before EV Mux
likewise.
kicks me off. Um,
Likewise.
yeah, this
Thank
has been awesome.
Thanks so much for having me on, Jake. Like, I'm so glad I got to know you now, and
Yeah.
I've just been really enjoying your channel. So it's a real treat to be
Same.
here.
Yeah.
Seeing everybody in the comments too, because it's like, so many people that I just like enjoy interacting with or watching their channels, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's really,
That's
really
cool.
great, man. So
Joseph's right. We do gotta do this again for
hell
sure.
yes, anytime, man. You just say the word, I'm there. And I
Yeah,
gotta have you on my channel at some point for Shelf Talkers. We'll figure out that date, for
for sure.
later.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, that'd be amazing, man. Yeah, I appreciate it a ton. Oh, John was here. I didn't even. What's up, man?
Oh, hey,
um, uh,
awesome.
yeah, this was a blast. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight. If you're watching the replay, as always, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Chime in on all the random tangents that we always go down. That's always fun. Um, thank you again for being here with me, man. This like I said, this has just been a blast. I think your channel is fantastic. You're an even better dude than I thought you were. Now that I've actually gotten to talk to you, and
Awesome.
I learned a lot, which is cool.
Likewise, man.
Yeah.
Feeling is so mutual. So looking forward to the next one.
Me as well. All right, let's see if there's an awkward delay when I hit the end broadcast button like there
As
is on
usual.
StreamYard. We will